about 10 to 20% of the time when you have a close brush with death, you'll have a near-death experience. About 80 or 90% of the time you won't. Very quickly, as I started accumulating near-death experience accounts, I realized that there were many of them that were absolutely remarkable. Now, no two near-death experiences are the same, but when you study as many as I have and other researchers that have studied that many, you see a very consistent pattern of elements, or if you will, characteristics, what happens during near-death experiences, typically observed and typically in a consistent order. Now, with regard to one of the more remarkable near-death experiences I've encountered, I did an interview with Vicky. Vicky was born totally blind. To Vicky, vision, seeing things, was unknown and unknowable. And yet, when she was involved in a car wreck, she wasn't driving, I might add. She was a singer at a bar, and unfortunately, an inebriated patron tried to get her home and crashed. The first time she had vision was when her consciousness was above her body during her near-death experience, and she saw her body on the gurney. She didn't even know who that was because, again, vision was unknown to her. It was only when she correlated her newfound sense of seeing things with the feel of her long hair and what she had only known by the sense of touch, a ring that her father had given her, she suddenly realized, that's me down there. Vicky went on to have a remarkably detailed near-death experience, extremely detailed in terms of visual content. And of course, that was the last time she had vision like that either. So that was, again, a vivid reminder to me of the reality of near-death experiences. For somebody born totally blind to have that detailed of a vision, absolutely no other medical explanation. And I might add, Vicky's vision during her near-death experience is what many people that have, I'll call it NDEs for short, have. And that is so-called 360-degree vision. She was simultaneously aware of vision in front of her, behind her, right, left, up, down, all processing it simultaneously. And even when I told Vicky, hey, that's incredible because those of us worldwide that have vision only have a so-called pie-shaped visual field because of the location of our eyes in our head. And Vicky literally laughed and said that can't be true because don't forget, her whole life experience with vision was that 360-degree vision and not the vision so familiar to us in our conventional earthly lives.
And if I remember correctly, there's also a story in a hospital where someone received a near-death experience where he could remember what his parents or what the nurse was talking about while he was dead. Can you also
Oh,
tell that story?
yeah, we have a lot of those types of accounts. I mean, literally scores and scores of accounts that occurred. Are you talking about something during an operation
Yeah.
or something? Yeah, we have just like that very first near-death experience occurred. We have literally scores and scores of these types of experiences where, again, they're under anesthesia, and of course, they carefully monitor the heart while you're under anesthesia. So when you code, when your heart stops, goes flat, they know that, and that's very well documented. Of course, that then precipitates a near-death experience. Typically, majority have what's called an out-of-body experience, consciousness generally going above the body. And from that vantage point, they can see the frantic actions of the surgical and anesthesia team trying to find out what went wrong and trying desperately to bring them back to life. I can tell you when that happens in the real world as a physician, I've seen that, I'm aware of that. It's not like Hollywood. It's frantic. There's panic. The crash cart doesn't magically appear outside the door.
Mm.
There may be, I dare say, unprofessional behavior. It's usually the doctor. So this is what they describe is grippingly real and real world heart stopping during an anesthetic procedure that obviously wasn't expected. So by the scores and scores, we have people whose consciousness rise above, describes the reality of that event, describes the racket that the heart monitor, EKG monitor, makes when it goes flat. And boy, is that a loud alarm. But not at all unusual for them to have their consciousness then leave from above their body, leave the operating room, and for they may go, and I believe I recall the one that you remember, Donald, that was one where they went to the waiting room and very precisely recalled their parents at that time, I believe it was, their trouble with the vending machine, their conversations. When they recovered from what nearly killed them, they were able to verify in exquisite detail that what they saw, what they heard was absolutely real. We had another similar such code heart stopped during general anesthesia, their consciousness left their operating room theater and went down to the hospital cafeteria. There, their family members were gathered, unaware of that crisis in a different part of the hospital. And from that vantage point over their family members in the cafeteria, vividly heard and saw what they were doing at that point in time. And again, when they recovered from that close brush with death, exquisitely detailed, accurate recollection of what they saw and heard, verified down to the finest details. So again, some of the most powerful evidence for the reality of near-death experience, and globally, that there's more to consciousness in our human brain than we ever thought. So there are now, given the huge number of these types of near-death experiences that me and other researchers have found, there's no question they're real. In fact, it's actually quite rare it's relatively rare, at least in my experience, that when people have that out-of-body experience and see ongoing earthly events, that what they see or hear is an error. Virtually all the time it is accurate, no matter whether they're close to their physical body or geographically far beyond their physical body and far beyond any possible physical sensory awareness. If they're seeing it and hearing it while they have a near-death experience, it's almost certainly going to later be verified as real.